Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This is one that I have been looking forward to for so long, and then I got to review it, and then I accidentally deleted the footage. So now I'm recording it again. But today I am reviewing stories number 4 through 8 of the Bryce Can collection by Travis Beaudoin. This is a MLM, or I guess MXM, erotica series about this couple where when the husband goes away, Bryce will play, and it's kind of all part of their kink, and each short story involves a sexual encounter between him and one of his, I don't know what you want to call them, playmates, or sometimes multiple. But overall, I really enjoyed the first 3, so I was super excited to get back into this, not the least of which because story number 8 has the husband coming back home. And I also kind of broke one of my own personal booktube rules for this, in that I read these stories during a 24-hour readathon. All of these stories together counted as one book, and I read 6 that day, and I usually wouldn't do that, but I was really excited for these. And again, they're short stories, so they read pretty quickly. Now I'm going to go fairly quickly through each one, not too much in depth, more talking broadly, and then I'll give my thoughts on the entire short story collection, broadly speaking. So the first one that I read was actually short story number 4 in the collection, and that is Throw Hips. Honestly, this one was actually my least favorite. I think it was the only short story I only gave 4 stars to, mostly because it's just not my wheelhouse type of stuff. This is much more like, oh yes, you want someone grimy that doesn't really care about you because that's sexy, but like, it's not my vibe. That's not to say I'm like a total demisexual, but like that whole it's sexy because he ignores you has never gelled with me, and the entire thing just felt slightly off for me personally. Now I still gave it 4 stars because the writing is still decent, and a lot of these stories have flashbacks or mentions of Matt, Bryce's husband, and I really liked those. You also find out a little bit more about Bryce's work and life outside of these encounters, which I really liked. So that's probably the only thing I liked about this. Other than that, like, I kind of just read this one to get to the next one, because the next one, called Quick Study, was probably one of my favorites. If you've been around my channel for a hot minute, you know I am a sucker for a soft boy. It's one of my favorite kinds of characters. And his partner in this one, Julian, is a whole, just, oh, so good, soft boy. And I appreciated that it wasn't strictly a professor-student relationship, but like it had slight like overtones of that, because Bryce is a professor and his student Julian was once a student, but they did not start anything physical until after he had moved on to, I believe, his master's or his doctorate. I don't remember exactly what he's working on in this story, but so it has like slight overtones of that, but it's also much more like lovable in this one. This story also has a lot of overtones of coming out, because Julian explains to Bryce that him being out in the classroom is what helped Julian kind of come to grips with things, which I don't necessarily need as overt themes in every queer story I read, but it's really nice to see that and see how one person living their truth can inspire others to do the same. So this one was probably one of my favorites. So it was a little bit whiplash going from one of my least favorites in the series to one of my favorites, but overall, still was enjoying it at that part, even though I think it was early in the morning when I was reading that one, if I remember correctly. Anyway, the next one was In the Dark, and this one doesn't have quite the same feel as Throw Hips, even though like it's almost 100% kink. He basically goes to this club that's known for dark rooms and seedy things, and goes into a dark room, and I think he has as many as 5 partners at once, which is insane. And it was really interesting, one, for the flashbacks, because he goes back to the place where he first met his husband, which was really cute, and 2, during it, he almost like gives each of his partners, whose faces he can't see, he's literally in the dark, like their own personalities, so you look more into his mind than anyone else, because he's basically giving people he can't see characteristics in his head. But it also, like, I also wonder, would he actually be okay with a perfectly anonymous encounter, because even now he still has to give them some kind of identifying thing. But the sex scenes in this one weren't bad, but for me it wasn't the point of it. It wasn't the most interesting part going on. And also this one had a lot more fluids. Travis knows how I feel about that, by the way. Travis is one of those indie authors where, like, we have a regular, like, Twitter DM conversation going on, and he thinks it's hilarious how iffy I am about fluids. So, you know, Travis. But anyway, the next one, Roadside Assistance, probably has the most cliche setup of any of these. It's also the shortest. It is literally Bryce breaks down, has to call the tow truck. Did you know that tow truck guy is so sexy? And it's the most generic porn setup, but surprisingly, the mechanic is fairly in depth. Like, Bryce mentions that he has a husband and explains the situation between them, and like, mechanic is down, and he's an oddly in-depth character for, I think it was one of like 18 pages. So an 18-page short story, he's very in-depth for a character that's not even named until the end. And I really liked that. I liked how, even though it was this little 18-page porno, essentially, he felt like a real world character. And also they kind of like hint that he's going to become one of Bryce's like regular playmates moving forward. Is it weird that I call them playmates? I don't know. But I really appreciated that one. But of course, it was really just like the moving into the last story number 8, which is also the longest, and it should be the longest of all of them, Reclaimed. This is when Matt comes home from his business trip and they play their little game. Now, this story is very heavily BDSM. There is actually a disclaimer, I believe, at the end that talks about how to do it safely, and you need to do it with a partner you trust, and all the safe words and da-da-da-da-da. And I liked it because you actually see that kind of mentality in the story itself. They do take on these roles using words that I can't use, even though I've been saying words like porn, but I don't want to use certain words with the little that might be walking towards the door. No, we're good. Anyway, so Matt definitely takes on these dominant roles with Bryce as a submissive, but there are certain moments where you see little cracks and you see Matt like double checking to make sure Bryce is okay with all of the intense stuff, and it's beyond adorable. They are so in love with each other, and it's just so cute. Like, literally in my notes here, I put, "Aw, they love each other so much." It is so cute because, like, it's been hinting at it. You haven't seen Matt at all in the actual contemporary storyline throughout any of these stories. You've seen flashbacks, you've gotten like texts or messages from him, but this is the first one where you actually see the character himself, and the chemistry is so there. It's just so nice and sexy, and like Matt is like so proud of how many partners Bryce found while he was gone. He's like, really, that many? It was so cute. And like, it's not wholesome in a standard sense because it's a BDSM sex scene, but it's like still got wholesome vibes, if that makes sense. Like, the love is just so much there, and the love is wholesome. They truly just adore each other, and it's so cute, and it's so nice. And I've joked around before that I want Travis to write some kind of slow burn romance novel, because if he can create that level of love in a short story collection where you don't even see the main couple together until the very end, I think the talent is there. I would love to see all of these kind of bound up together in some kind of whole singular short story collection. I feel like that would be fun. I don't know that I could risk having that on my shelves when guests come over, but you never know. Regardless, I am a huge fan of this work. I am a huge fan of the author. Travis has been a huge help. I randomly one day saw one of his tweets talking about Own Voices MLM content, and that stuff can be hard to find, especially in BookTube, where a lot of non-queer male voices writing queer male stories will take precedence over the actual queer male voices. And so we started talking, and he gave me this giant list of authors, and he gave me like so many recommendations. Whenever he sees a queer space opera, he's always sending it my way. He's sent other indie authors, MLM authors to me for review. It's just absolutely fantastic. The work is fantastic, and I can't wait to see what he'll do moving forward. Now, if you are an indie author and you would like a review like this one, you can send me an email. I will have my email down in the description below. Please be aware, I am, yes, still soft closed. It is 2020 and it's just hard, but I may be more likely to say no than usual, so bear that in mind. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.